Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about a list. So in Python, arrays are known as list. If you're familiar with other programming language, you've probably heard the word arrays, but here we call them list. Lists are aggregate data type, meaning that they are composed of other data types, and lists are similar to strings in that the value inside them are indexed and they have a length property and a count of the object inside them. Lists can also be made of different data types like strings, booleans, numbers. Lists are made with comma separated elements enclosed in square brackets. For example, we have this variable digits, we have a square brackets, and then we have some values separated with comma. And lists also are index based, so first values start from 0 index. So I'm going to try printing out this list using print statement. We're going to push in digits. Let's save and then Control R to run this file. And then there you go. You get to see a list here. Now, as I said, lists are index based. So what if we want to get 3 here? So list index starts from 0. So here we have index 0, index 1, 2. So if I use square brackets and then pass in 2 as an index value, and I'm going to run this, now we only get 3. Okay, so lists are index based. Also, you can create a list with different kind of values. So I'm actually going to paste the mixed list here, and there you go. So we have a number, a floating point number, a string, another string, and guess what? We have another list inside a list. So let's try getting rid of these digits and let's play with mixed list. So I'm going to print them out first for you, and I'm going to run this code, and we have a list printed out. Okay, now if we want to grab this string, how do we do that? Well, we're going to put in index number in a square brackets. So let's count. So this would be index 0, that's index 1, and then index 2. So I'll type index 2, press Ctrl S to save, Ctrl R to run, and there you go. We get a string back. Now, this is fairly simple for you, right? But what about this? How do I get the value from a list which is inside a list? So to get the list inside a list, first of all, we need to find out its index. So this is the last value or last element in the list. So we can use the negative. So I'm going to use -1. Let's save the file and let's run it, and we get that list, right? Now we got that list. To get inside that list, we open another square bracket, and then we pass in the index which we want to grab from the list inside a list. So it's basically a nested list. So I'm gonna define 0 here. Let's save the file, and now can you guess what it's gonna return? Well, it's gonna return 1. So let's run it, and there you go. We get to see 1. Now I'm gonna change the value from 2 to nested list. Let's save that, and I'm going to change this 0 index to 1. So now what's happening here? We're grabbing this variable which holds this list, and we say, hey, can you go to the last index? We can actually get to the last index by just counting the index, but that's not ideal. So I'll use -1, which automatically gives me the last element in the list. So then once we grab that, then I open another square brackets and we pass in the index for our values inside the nested list. So here I'm going to say 1, that should return nested list. I'm going to press Ctrl R to return, to actually run. There you go, we got nested list. List has a length method, so I'll use print statement, I'll use a length, and we pass in a mixed list. Save the file, press Ctrl R, and there you go, we get to see 5. That's the length of that. So what would be the last index? Well, that would be 4, because list index starts from 0. So that's fine. Now we are going to learn a bit more about lists. How do we slice lists? We've seen with the strings, it's basically very similar. So in strings, we don't see any comma here, but actually these are the characters. So let's try getting R from this string. So first of all, I'm going to get that as 2. That's what we got, string. And then after that, I will define 1. Actually, that's going to be 2. Now that's going to go inside the mixed list and grab this string for us. Then this square brackets will go inside the string because it's like a string. Yeah, you can grab the character from that. It's going to grab the character which is on index 2. Let's save the file and let's run it. And there you go. We get to see R. So you can see this value is actually a string inside the list, which has its own method, which has its own, a character and index. So what if you want to, make it uppercase? So I'll type dot upper and let's save it. Now I'm gonna run this and you get to see capital R. Let's try that on this value. So instead of grabbing this string, I'm going to change that to, let's just say 1. I'm going to save the file. Let's run it. Now it's going to throw an error. So we have a type error. It's saying float object is not subscribable. Basically, it's saying to me that, hey, can you pass me a string instead of this float? Because float would not have dot upper method. That's what we're getting. Because if I change this to 3 and we get that as a string, then I'm going to save this and let's run this. And now we get to see M. And if I remove this second, index, let's run it. Now we get summer, but upper. So yeah, we can, use a nested list inside a list. And sometimes in your programming experience, you might have to deal with lists which are inside the list and more lists inside a list and more lists inside a set. So I've seen like, a hierarchy of like 20 lists, which is like very complicated, but I've seen that kind of list there. Okay, so next up is lists can also be sliced. The slicing operations always return a new list that has been derived from the old list. The syntax remains the same. You type the list, you give a start index colon with the end index. As with the string slicing, the element and end isn't included in the result as well. So here you go, we're gonna try that now. I'm just gonna remove this upper method. And then here, I'm gonna say, hey, can you please give me second index, colon, and end with -1, which basically is gonna give me the last index. So I'm gonna run this and we get spring and summer. Now, this was not there because the last index is not included. So if I leave that empty, save that, let's press Ctrl R, and this time we're gonna get the last index as well. So we've seen that in a string. It's a similar thing. We're gonna talk about concatenations now. So let's grab a list here. I'm gonna just copy paste a code. Let me actually get rid of this code, guys, and I'm gonna use numbers equal to this. Now I'm creating 2 lists, but I'm using this concatenation operator, which is a plus operator. Now if I try to print numbers, let's save the file, press Ctrl R, and you can see it's not giving me 2 lists. It's basically concatenating that. So concatenation can be done using this plus operator. Now changing values in the list, that's what we're going to talk about. Well, lists are mutable. You can change the value in a list by assigning whatever is that index. So I'm going to actually change this to back this one. Now I'm gonna change the value of spring to, for example, winter. So we'll do that by using a mixed list, and then we use square bracket. We'll find the index for this. That would be 2, and then we can say equal to, and then I'm gonna pass in, let's just say winter. Okay. And then I'm going to print the list. So do a mixed list. Let's save it. Let's press Ctrl R to run, and there we go. Now instead of spring, we get winter. So we'll do one more thing. I'm gonna change that to, we changed the index 2, so I'm gonna define index 2 here in the square brackets to, in the print statement, and we get winter. Note, it is possible to add any type of value to the list, regardless of what type value it contains. For example, you can add an integer to a list of strings or a string to a list of integers. Now you can also use append method to insert values at the end. So for example, we'd like to move a bit down, and I'm just gonna get rid of that and get rid of this print statement. Save the file, and now let's just say I want to add winter at the end, and I don't know the index of the last, I don't want to deal with that slicing and all that thing. So we have a very simple method which will go and find the index, the last index, and then put the value at the last. You can use that append method. So I'll use mixedlist.append, and then we can say, can you please append winter at last? I'm going to print a mixed list, save the file, and I'm gonna press Ctrl R to run it, and there you go. We have the last value set as winter. So this append method is great. List data type has some built-in methods that can be used with it. Now we've seen one method called append, but we have a lot more methods. For example, we have extend method, insert, remove, pop, clear, index. To look at the list of methods, we're gonna go to terminal. I'm gonna go inside the Python shell, and I'm gonna type help, and here we can say list, give me a help of list. Here I'm gonna go all the way down where we start seeing some methods. So there you go. We have a append method which we use. It gives you what it does. So it appends object to the end of the list. Clear, remove all the items. Very simple. Copy returns a shallow copy of a list. Count returns the number of occurrences of list. So let's go over these methods because I don't want to say that go and read the documentation. A couple of methods that I would like you to see and understand. So let's get out from help. Let's close the Python shell. Let's bring down the terminal. The next method we can look at is extend. So extend method takes one argument which should be an iteratable data type. It then extends the list by appending all the items from the iteratable to the list. So let's take a look at what we can do with list extend. I'm actually going to remove this mixed list. Let's save the file. And now we are going to have another list. So I'll say mixed list 2 equal to, and I would like to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can say, hey, let's add winter here. Okay, let's add John here. I'm going to save the file. I'm going to extend a mixed list with list 2. So I'll type mixed list dot extend method and push in mixed list 2. Now if I go and print mixed list, I'll run the code, Control R, and there you go. We have a list, and 1, 2, 3, 4 winter and John has been appended at the last. Next we take a look at list.insert method. This method inserts an item at the given position. The method takes two arguments, index and item. So I'm just going to remove this, and we're going to get rid of this list, mixed list 2 as well. So let's just say I would like to add John here. Okay, so I'll use a mixed list dot insert, not index, insert, and there's two arguments, the index int and an object to insert. So I'll say this starts from 0, 1, 2, and I would like to insert this at index 3. So I'll say 3, comma, and then I'll type, let's just say John. Let's save that, and then we're gonna run by using a print statement, and we pass in mixed list actually. Let's save it, and I'm going to press Ctrl R to run it. And now you can see on exactly index 3 we have John. Now here you can push in a number, you can push in boolean, you can push in another list here. So if I create another list right here, I'll add a comma, I'll say 5 comma, and I'll add winter here. Let's save this, and now we'll print it, and there you go. So we have John 5 winter. We have another list here inside a list. So there's 2 nested lists now. So we got one list here and then the second list. So you can insert on a specific index as well. Now the next method we look at would be remove. List.remove method removes from the list the first item whose value matches the argument item. So we'll create another list. Let me just get rid of this as well, guys. So I'm going to use mixedList.remove, and now this will take an object to remove. So I'll say, hey, can you remove spring? And then we can go and print a mixed list current stage. Let's save it, and I'm going to press Ctrl R. Now we don't see spring anymore, so it's going to go and look inside our list, and any value that matches to our passed in value will be removed. We have a next method, list.pop, which is the most common one you'll be using with append. So that method removes an item at the given index of the list. Sometimes you want to remove something from a given index. So I'll say mixedList.pop, and I will remove this spring, and I know that it is on index 3. So for that we'll push in 3 as an index, and I'm going to press Command S to save the file. Let's print mixed list, save it, and then Ctrl R to run it. And now you can see that summer has been removed. So that was on index 3. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. That was removed. Like you can say popped out. Now sometimes you want to clear the list and you want to basically remove everything. So I'll use this clear method. Now this is not going to take any argument. Basically it just removes all the items in the list. So let's press Ctrl R to run this, and now we get empty list here. Now you can create empty list, so I'll say empty list equal to just square brackets, and we have an empty list in our memory location. Now we have a list.index. So basically list.index method returns the index of the first item in the list whose value is item. The start parameter and end parameter are optional, but they indicate the position in the list at which the search for said item should start and end respectively. So now I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to use index. Okay, and I'm going to grab, let's just say spring. Okay, let's save it. And now we get to see the index. Actually, we should be seeing an index here. So I'm going to cut this code and paste that here. All right, let's save the file, let's run it, and now that gives us the return of index. So basically, if you want to find out the index of specific value, then you can check with index. So let's just say I will copy this, okay, and I'm gonna pass in here. Now if I run this, it's going to give me index 4. So basically it's a complete object. It's going to go and match with this, and it's going to return the index for that value, or you can call it object. Now this index method is pretty expensive on your processor because it's going to look every single item in the list. So I wouldn't really do that on the larger list or longer list or bigger list, but we'll come to the data structure or data structure section of this course where we'll talk about this. Next method is the count. This method returns the number of times that the given item occurs in the list. So I'm going to get rid of this and I'll use count, and we will basically check s. Okay, let's have a string s. Let's save that, and then I'm going to run it. It's going to return an error. It's saying, hey, list big count list, it has an invalid syntax error because we have one bracket here and also the third bracket should be removed. Let's run it, and it says 0 times. The reason for that is because there is no element in the list which has a value of s. But what if I just copy this and then I will paste that here, paste that here. So we have 3 springs now, and I'm going to check, hey, how many times that I have a value of spring in the list. So we can check that by count method. I'll press Ctrl-R and it gives me 3 times. That is cool that you can check whether you have a value more than 1 in the list. Now last 2 methods we're going to talk about would be copy and reverse. So I'm just going to use a mixed list.reverse method. This is not going to actually take any argument because it's just going to reverse the elements of the list. So let's print the mixed list now, and let's see what values that we have. So I'm going to press Ctrl-R to run it, and now we see we have the last value at the first, and then summer, spring, 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 and then floating point number and 1. So you can see just passing this reverse method, you can reverse this list. This is great. Last method would be copy, which returns a shallow copy of the list. So I'll say L2 equal to mixed list dot copy. Okay, let's save the file, and then we're gonna print L2, and let's see what we get inside that. So we're gonna press Ctrl-R, and we can see we have that list printed out. Now here we pretty much covered all the methods available in the list. Now how to utilize these methods, we'll take a look at that in the project. I would highly recommend to play with these methods and try to use them to manipulate lists and their data. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.